Hi everybody, my name is Bhavishya and in this lecture we'll see the lab of TR and BDR selection. So we'll see it in different criteria. So the very first one is the one from this topology. So here as we can see is R1 is having IP 10.0.0.1 and this is the router ID 1.1.1. After that we have R2 having IP address 10.0.0.2 and router ID 2.2.2. After that, we have R3 having IP 10.0.0.3 with router ID 3.3.3. And at last, we have R4 having IP address 10.0.0.4 and the router ID is 4.4.4. Now, initially, we are going to enable R1, R2, and R3 with OSPF. So, as we'll give the command of network to R1, R2, and R3, the election between R1, R2, and R3 for DR and BDR will start, and then we will observe, as we have learned in the concept, that the one having the highest router ID will become DR. So here in this situation between R1, R2, and R3, R3 is having the highest router ID 3.3.3. So R3 will become DR. After that, as R2 has the second highest router ID, R2 will become BDR, and as R1 has the lowest router ID, it will become DR other. Right? Yes. So let us see. So I've already gave the command, you just have to hit enter. Okay, so let the competition start. Similarly for R2, similarly for R3. Go and check. Show IP OSPF interface brief. Here as you can see, this is R1, right? R1 has achieved the state of DR other, right? Similarly, let's see for R2, show IP OSPF interface. As you can see, R2 has achieved the state of PDR, right? And for R3, here as you can see, R3 has achieved the state of DR, right? Now, the thing to notice here is, if you look at the neighbors, it says 2/2. That means that R3 is neighbor with two routers and it is in neighborship with those two routers, 2 by 2, right? As R3 is RDR, it will generate type 2 LSA, right? Now, if you look at R2, as you can see the neighbors, it is also 2 by 2, right? Yes. If we look at R1, it says 0, right? 0 by 2. Great. Now, we'll go and see the neighbors. So, show IP OSPF neighbor. Here, as you can see, R1 has these neighbors R2 and R3. R2 is in state of full, it is fully synchronized, and the state is BDR, right? R2 is in BDR state. If you look at R3, so R3 is in fully adjacent as well as in It is in the state of designated router. If we go and check to R2, so R2 is neighbors with R1 and R3. R1 is in state of fully synchronized and in DR other, right? Similarly with the case of R3, so R1 is in state of DR other and R2 is in state of PDR, right? Now we'll check what is inside in the database, but before, let me tell you what is inside. So as we have three routers participating in OSPF, R3 is behaving as designated router, R2 is behaving as backup designated router, and R1 is behaving as DR other. So as R3 is in state of designated router, only R3 will generate type 2 LSA, else everyone R1, R2 and R3 will generate type 1 LSA. So all total there will be 3 type 1 LSAs and 1 type 2 LSA generated by R3. Let's see. And throughout they will be fully synchronized. Here as you can see, R1, R2 and R3 generated type 1 LSA, router LSA, and only R3 generated type 2 LSA. Right? Yes. So, where we'll add R4 as a new router, and the trick here is R4 is having a higher router ID 4.4.4. So let's see what will happen as we'll add a new router where the selection of DR and PDR has already happened. For that I'll give the command. And now let's see show IP OSPF brief interface brief. Yes. Okay, before that, let me tell you what will happen. As DR and BDR selection has already happened, so it doesn't matter. R1 will be chosen as our DR other, as R3 is already our DR, right? So, as you can see, R4 establish itself as DR other. Now in the neighbors, as you can see, it is telling us 2, 3. So that F/C is full state. So R4 is full with 2, but neighbors with 3, right? What does that mean? So it is in the full state, fully synchronized with 2, which is our R3 and R2, as R2 and R3 is DR and BDR, right? But not fully synchronized with R1, as R1 is DR other, and DR other with other DR other, they are in the state of two-way. Let's see. So see it by IP OSPF. As you can see here, this is the router ID of R1. So it is in the state of two-way, right? And in the state of DR other, right? Yes. So if we'll go and check with R1 also, it will give us the same thing. As you can see here, with regards to R4, it is in the state of two-way, not full, and the state is DR other. Right. Let us also go and check for R2. With regards to R2, as you can see, R1 and R4 is dr other, R3 is dr, right? So it is in full state as R2 is our dr other, so it makes adjacency with everyone, RDR and PDR, R PDR and DR, right? Let's check for R3. Oh, as you can see, everyone is full, right? As R3 is DR. Now let's go and check the database. Let me check for R3. Okay, before that, let me tell you, we are checking the database of R3 as we want to validate that the LSA being generated was generated by R3 only, as it was originally the designated router. As you have add R4, R4 establish itself as dr other, not as dr, because the dr was already present, which is our R3. So you will see that type 2 LSA is being generated by R3. Here, as you can see, the router ID is its own ID, which is R3's router ID. Right.